Cardy.
Obviously, I'm super awkward in situations like that, and I kind of said, "Oh, that was the car, I think." I think the car just farted, which made it sound like I was trying to make an excuse for my own fart, because, I mean, who else blames the car for farting? But anyway. I want to first talk about our trip to see our coaching friend, Nick.
Yeah.
Jack, do you want to set the scene?
He's a friend / client, but he's become a friend, and it's been an absolute blast coaching him. He got in touch with us. He wants to open a studio, and he had found the most beautiful space. Jake, how nice was that space?
When driving up to that place makes me feel like I'm in Downton Abbey.
I felt like I was driving up to a wedding.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a wedding. And he was waiting there, ready to say hello with his landlord. Maybe that's a story for another pod.
I just want to touch, again, kind of unrelated to growing your gym, but just one of the funniest things happened. So Jack drove us there in his Tesla. And for those who own Teslas, you'll know that there's a little feature that you can actually set. What is it? The lock sound.
Every time it locks, you can set the sound to a fart.
Yeah. And did you do that intentionally?
No, my daughter did it.
Okay, cool. Well, anyway, I wasn't really expecting it, although I do know that Teslas have that feature. And we got out of the car, and you shut the door and you locked the car, and there's like a landlord there, very traditional man, probably in his early 70s.
Yeah.
Probably has no idea that cars fart.
Yeah.
Definitely. And nor did I really up until probably about a year ago. But anyway, you locked the car behind you. It farted.
And it let off the most brilliant fart.
And you were trying to talk very loudly.
I was shaking the landlord's hand as the car was farting. So my voice was getting louder and louder and louder just to try and hide the fart. And the landlord, I don't think, heard it.
No,
unbelievably.
But obviously, I'm super awkward in situations like that. And I kind of said, "Oh, that was the car, I think." I think the car just farted, which made it sound like I was trying to make an excuse for my own fart, because, I mean, who else blames the car for farting? But anyway.
And then the guy just looked at you as if to say, "What are you talking about?" And that is how the meeting kicked off.
But anyway, let's just talk about actually Nick's gym. So, run me through, I know I was there, but again, this is for the sake of the listeners, what he's looking to do and how we're helping him at the moment.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. So it's about 2,500 square foot. Standalone, incredibly converted barn. It's just amazing. Lovely views at the back. He's going upstairs with a Pilates reformer product, 8 reformers in there. So we were kind of mapping out exactly how that's going to be. And then downstairs, he's going semi-private. And we were mapping out where he's going to put a kit, what he's going to have in there. We're talking about models and all those kind of things. He's really excited, and it's going to be fantastic. And the cool thing is he's been using our pre-launch campaign, like mirroring the one that we used for Revamp. And he said he put out the last update and sent it to us on email, 704 on his waiting list as of 5 days ago.
Which again, with a facility that has a capacity of what, probably same as here.
I think 80-ish members month to month on the semi-private side, but he could easily have, I mean, we talked about not having a recurring membership for the Pilates side and actually having a pack model, which I think will work really well. Because you can also go higher per session as well with Reformer. But I think that business, I'm really confident together we can get that business to about 26, 27K a month, to just over 2,000 square foot.
That's crazy.
So cool. And he's gonna keep his cost to about 6, 7K.
That is nuts. And by the way, we have a private WhatsApp group of other gym owners in it. It's all very secret. We don't actually open it up to really anybody. And one of the studio owners in that group said that she's just hit capacity as well, and that she's thinking about scaling. Honestly, if personal trainers knew the opportunity with a brick and mortar studio in their local town, I think so many more would be doing it.
Yeah, it's mental. Big up G for that.
Yeah.
You know who you are. But today's episode, we are going to talk about how to remove yourself from coaching in your own studio. So this is a big one. And the biggest pain point for coaches when we go see them who've reached out to us and they say, "Guys, I need some help scaling. I don't really know what I'm doing to move forwards." The biggest pain point is always, I'm in coaching all week. I don't know what to do. I can't work on the business because I'm always in fulfillment. And it's just a cycle, right? And we talked about this in the last pod, I think.
I think what happens is personal trainers, they want to get out of paying another gym owner rent to PT. So their answer to that is like, right, I'm going to go and open up my own space. And then they probably, finance a lot of the equipment. They'll sign the lease. But then what they don't necessarily do is make that jump from personal trainer to fitpreneur or gym owner, right? Which in our definition is somebody that builds a business that is bigger than themselves. AKA, they're not just opening up a facility, whacking a name on the wall, and then continuing to do sessions every single day, non-stop. They're actually scaling it to a point where it can work without them and getting other coaches in place. But the biggest mistake a lot of PTs make is that they don't actually do that step, right? So they just open up a place, and it's like, now, instead of paying a gym owner rent, they have all of these other expenses that they need to meet.
Mm-hmm.
So they've just basically just created debt for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't actually moved themselves away from the business, which I think is key when it comes to opening up any facility.
Well, they go from coaching for 40 hours a week to coaching for 40 hours a week, don't they?
But with a lease to pay and utility bills and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. So wild. So this is a big one. If you're looking to open your own studio, if you're in that spot right now, hopefully after today's episode, you'll be able to certainly have a path out of it. So we're going to talk about that. So let's go, as always, Jake, we always go practical.
By step,
actionable. By step, right? Are we walking down the street? So step one, sourcing the best coaches. We put out a post today about short-term pain. I'm guessing you saw that, Jake, because you posted it.
Yeah.
About short-term pain. And coaches need to go through short-term pain to get to the destination they're trying to get to. A very, very close friend of ours, she's a dear friend of ours, she kind of told us something that we already know before we opened Revamp. She said to us, guys, get yourself out of coaching as quickly as possible.
I remember literally, I was at the same Costa as her. She came over, we had a chat, and we got talking, and she said, oh, it's so exciting what you're doing at Revamp. I was like, yeah. I mean, any advice? Because she already had a studio at the time. She said, just don't make it all around you and your coaching. And that was something we knew intuitively already, but we were very intentional about moving ourselves away from coaching. When I say ourselves, I mean you, away from coaching on the gym floor, because we knew that we wouldn't be able to scale it to a point that we needed if your time was just taken up with doing sessions all day.
One thing I'll say is I think it was a little easier for us to get the best coaches or to get coaches on board straight away. Not necessarily because of cash flow, because we had none. We didn't have any cash flow, did we, Jake?
Nope.
At that time, when we were hiring coaches. We just had a big belief that we would have from our pre-sale. But we leveraged our past experience in coaching to get like 3 of the coaches that we had come straight away. So these are guys that we had coached online before who just happened to be local, that we could reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. We want you to be a part of it. And they said, we'd love to, right? They had the trust in us to go, these guys are great. Thanks, guys. I want to join them on this journey. So we managed to get some amazing coaches from day one, which was great. But other ways that coaches could leverage their past experience if they weren't coaching coaches, right? Because I doubt many people would be, is to like friendships and relationships you would have built, personal training within like a 5-mile radius of you, or even personal trainers that are 20 minutes away. You'll have those relationships already. If you reach out to those people and say, hey, I'm doing this thing with or without you, I'd love you to be part of it, then they're going to most likely follow you.
Which I think is also the benefit of the pre-launch campaign we just mentioned earlier, is that not only does that create a buzz and interest amongst the local community in terms of, hoping that a lot of them will turn into members one day, but I think what it also does, it builds a lot of excitement within the personal training community as well. And like one thing I think Nick mentioned to us when we went and saw him was he's had a lot of people reach out to him who are personal trainers who want to be a part of what he's doing because they're excited about it as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the secondary benefit of having a launch campaign and documenting what you're doing in terms of building out the studio and everything, because you'll see other personal trainers watch and think, I'd really like to be part of that.
When you're hiring coaches as well, really try and bring experience in. Ideally, coaches that have already coached one to small group is great. But if they haven't, just make sure they've got lots of experience, because when you go into a one to small group setting, when people are paying a premium price per month, they want to be coached by someone that really knows what they're doing. And of course, you'll have younger coaches who have a couple of years experience who are just like killers in the game already. And that's great. But if you can have coaches who have tons of experience already in that group setting, it's even better. So optimize for that, because that's what's going to reduce your churn more than anything else.
And also just not being scared to invest money into coaches. Like it's very tempting to build your studio out into, the best looking studio in town, having all the, state of the art equipment, really going to town on that stuff. But then I think sometimes what gets neglected is how you reward your coaches. Because at the end of the day, when you have a small group personal training product and your whole business relies on monthly recurring revenue, and when the product is centered around sessions, who are going to be ultimately in charge of the experience? It's going to be your coaches. So if you don't actually invest what's required into your coaches and you get subpar coaches, what will ultimately happen is that the client experience will decrease, and therefore they will churn, and therefore the business will suffer. So in our heads, we always knew, like, if we want to have low churn, a great experience for members, we need to invest more into the coaches that we bring on board. And, that's what we're lucky to have.
Yeah. And one quick thing on that. When you open a studio, a lot of guys obviously go, hey, I'm going to do 100% of the sessions straight away, because then I'm going to build up the cash to be able to...
Chicken and egg scenario.
Yeah, to be able to employ more coaches. And rarely does it happen because they're in so much fulfillment. They're not focused on marketing. They're not getting back to leads. They're not doing any sales consults, all these kind of things that you should be doing, right? As an operator.
They get scared as well that, once they've spent a year and they've done 100% of the sessions and all the members are there for them, what happens now if I step away? Will those members stay there? Will they carry on? Will they cancel or whatever? So there's a lot of fear that comes with that move as well.
Hey, quick one from us. If you're enjoying this episode, you'll love our free weekly newsletter.
It's for current and aspiring studio owners who are looking for the latest growth hacks to sign up more members and keep them.
It's a quick 2-minute email covering the stuff we're testing in our own gyms.
So you'll be getting access to what's working today.
If you're interested, you can join 3,500 gym owners and go to thefitpreneur.com and subscribe.
That's thefitpreneur.com. Anyway, back to the episode. The biggest piece of advice I can give if you're thinking about this and opening your own studio, don't do more than 50% of the sessions. So if you, from the start, now I don't mind you having 50, and obviously you want to scale that back over time, ideally. I'm not saying you should necessarily get out of the coaching, because if you're listening to this, you're a great coach and that's what you love doing. You love being with people. So don't ever just jump out of it. But if you can give 50% of the sessions to other coaches, it just means that you can open the diary for sales consults. You can have those options for people. You can think about how you're going to acquire new members. You can get back to your members nice and quickly when they've got something they're reaching out to you about. So all these things are really, really important.
And I think when you're creating that P&L right from the beginning, and if you aren't factoring in other coaches' expenses and you're just kind of basing it on your own time,
best possible case.
It is the best possible case. It's very difficult then to kind of start with that and think, actually, I'm going to give all that away now to other coaches.
Yeah.
So I think it's a mindset thing as well. Like, just right from the off, just remove yourself from 50% at least of sessions, because you will actually see a plan in front of you which is set up to scale, as opposed to setting up just to pay you every month.
I think it's definitely another pod topic where we get into finances to have in line before you open a studio. But the worst thing you can do is build a profit and loss projection on the best possible scenario, because it's always going to be worse.
Yes, yeah.
And you're not going to like that feeling. Okay, cool. I think we've talked about coaches and given some good stuff there. So let's
just want to quickly jump on that as well before we move on. Like, best places to find great coaches. Like, that's a question we often get of like, where, okay, this all sounds well and good, but where do I go and actually to source the best coaches?
Do you know a really good, well, obviously local gyms, obviously.
Yeah.
You can go local gyms and you can take people from local gyms. I think that's a really good place to start. It's obvious. But a really good place, I've seen it and seen people do it lately, is personal trainer Facebook groups. Like good ones, like reputable ones. Don't go to like the 100,000 people ones where it's just...
Do you want to make 5K a month online?
Yeah,
Those kind of ones, yeah.
Just a waste of time. But if you go to well-moderated ones and say, I'm looking for 2 PTs in the Ipswich area, who want to join a brand new studio, competitive rates, reach out for a chat, then you most likely will have 2 or 3. But like you said, if you're running a pre-launch campaign like we coach all of our clients, Nick's already had like 3 or 4 people reach out to him anyway, PTs and reformer coaches. So he's got those meetings already before he opens the studio, which is where you want to be, definitely.
And also, like, one thing we've experienced is, maybe it's because we used to coach online personal trainers, but a lot of the coaches that work here at Revamp, they are or have been online personal trainers. And I think you have to build up a lot of skills in order to actually make that transition to online. And a lot of them are doing very well online, right? Yeah. So what they love about coming here is it's a scratch your itch type of thing where they get to come, they get to work on the gym floor again, not for hours on end, but maybe 2, 3, 4 sessions where they can experience actually what got them into personal training in the first place.
Sure.
So I think in that case, we get the top range of skills, but also we're able to give them what they're looking for and not necessarily anything more or anything less.
Yeah. Step number 2, having a transition plan. Jake, kick this one off because this is the biggie.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pretend you've found a coach and you're really excited about bringing them onto the team. One way to completely ruin everything is to throw that coach in all of the sessions right from day one, right? So say, for example, you're doing 50% of the sessions, right? And you found another coach to take over your 50%. You then say to all of your members or your clients, oh, by the way, next week, I'm not coaching you anymore. Like, that's it. We're done. I've got somebody else in. You're going to be coached by them now for the foreseeable future. That is quite a lot of disharmony that you are causing for no need, right? So we've come up with this really simple transition plan, and this can be tailored and tweaked depending on, your experience and who the coach you're bringing in and all that kind of thing. There's something we did actually in real time that worked really well for us is we followed almost like a 30-day transition with one of our coaches. So it looked a little bit like this. So like week 1, that coach shadowed you in your session, right? And during that session, I mean, you'd probably be able to speak more to this than I could, but you're just basically introducing them to members, showing them the space. Obviously, you're leading the session, you're explaining to things as you go. And it just gives members that first touch point, but in a safe environment where you're still coaching, you just got somebody else next to you.
Yeah. So yeah, week 1, they shadow me. One thing I will say, introduce all the members to that person. And towards the end of that week, I normally get that person joining in with the coaching. So correcting technique, maybe motivating in the conditioning piece, that kind of thing.
Cool.
So you can definitely do that.
And in week 2, you shadow that coach, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that coach has spent that week with you. They've shadowed you. They've seen exactly what it's all about. So now it's about swapping over the role to them. So they are now coaching in person and you are now shadowing them. So like it's almost like swapping that role and you get to see exactly how they work in that environment.
Week 3. No, we've done that, haven't we? Sorry. No. Week 3, the new coach takes over sessions. Okay. So they've done their shadowing. You've shadowed them. You have confidence in them. The members have confidence in them. So now they can take over the sessions as they normally would. Okay, so that happens from week 3. And then finally, week 4, and something that we did with every single coach we had, we conducted member check-ins and to kind of get feedback and an idea of how they were finding that coach. We do that in our progress check-ins, which is what we call our recommit at week 4 of everyone's challenge. I always ask the question, how have you found the coaches? Right, number 1. Yeah, I'll get a grasp on every single coach. How you found the sessions, how have you found the programming, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll go into details. So we do that anyway a lot because it's really important. But yeah, that's our 4-week kind of transition model. That's how we work. So week 1, new coach shadows you. Week 2, you shadow the new coach. Week 3, new coach takes over sessions completely. And week 4, you conduct, get feedback from member check-ins and things. Number 1 thing I will just say, Jake, here, because I know people will ask this question, do you pay the coach when they shadow you and you shadow them? And the answer is absolutely you do. Stop being cheap. Pay the coach because it's their time. They're coming in, right? They're making a special trip to come to your studio. Pay them. I just don't like when people go, oh yeah, but they need to prove themselves.
No.
It's like, come on. Stop being cheap.
Your coaches are assets within the business.
Yeah.
So like with any asset, you've got to invest in your assets, right?
100%.
So if you leave it there to depreciate, aka doing things that probably intuitively you probably shouldn't do, like not pay them to shadow sessions, then you're starting off on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
And the reason we have this transition in place in the first place is just to give members that confidence and that trust of who you're bringing in is going to fit the mold of the business, right? So if you just throw them in straight from day one, they're not going to be ready. You're not going to be ready. Your members aren't going to be ready. So be patient. Allow this 30 days to really embed them in. And once that's over, obviously we can then move on to the next step.
Yep. Which is branding your PTs. So all of our PTs, I mean, these last 2 are a little quicker. They're not as practical, but branding your PTs is important because for us, it's professionalism, standards, making sure everyone has a jumper, a revamped top, making sure they all wear black at all times, which is really important because we have continuity, right? And it's not only that, like coaches walk about town in between sessions, they head coffee at the coffee shop, all that kind of stuff. We just keep brand front and facing. And if people ever want to know about Revamp, most likely they ask one of our coaches.
And also just, it's important to note that brand doesn't have to necessarily be visual. Like one thing that we do and will always continue to do is shout about and celebrate our PTs. So within our community, our members will get to know our personal trainers like personal brands, right? So when you open up your own personal training business, you're a standalone local PT, what tends to happen is that you become a brand within your local community because, oh, that's Jack the PT. Oh, he's doing burpees again in the street, all this kind of thing. So we want to be a place where when anybody thinks of our coaches, they think, oh, that's the guy at Revamp, right? So for example, ways in which we can do that is doing funny videos with them online, throwing them into our Facebook community, taking pictures, doing like some, the usual kind of social media stuff.
Yeah.
Just means that when people or members see them online, they see them as, being nice and fun, in which case that obviously expands into the rest of into the studio.
100%. Step 4, final step, allow for failure. This is a big one. And not everyone does allow for failure, but unfortunately you are going to have failures, right? So the biggest thing we've got here is grant coaches the autonomy in sessions with session structure, programming, all that kind of stuff, because not every single coach is going to coach in the same way, and you can't force them to because they're their own personality, they're their own coach, they've done things a certain way pretty much all their coaching career. So make sure that you grant them autonomy within sessions, because members are also going to love that, right? Members are going to go, oh, he does that in his sessions. I might go join one of his sessions this week, and they'll love another coach for another reason. And like we have 6 coaches here. They all have very different personalities.
Yeah, and that was intentional,
yes,
right? Because
yeah.
like to your point, like we don't want them all to be robots. We want them to have their own personalities and their own style, because that's what's given them that success in the first place, right? So if we know that so-and-so is going to be doing their session, they're going to be doing it their way because they've got years of experience behind them. That's great, because it just means, like you said, members will start gravitating towards the coaches that they get along with most. And that's what we're finding at the moment, is that a lot of the sessions during the week tend to be filled with the same people. And again, I don't think that necessarily happens by accident.
It's not a bad thing. I definitely think that coaches who have been on their own for a long time and had their own personal training business can fall into trying to micromanage other coaches. And I think that is a big mistake. When you hire coaches, you effectively put more of a business owner hat on. And as a business owner, you have to realize that you're going to have to manage people, different personalities, different skills, all those kind of things. And understanding that comes with the nature of running a business and running a studio is really, really important. So don't ever think that someone's just going to come in and coach the way you coach, because it's not going to happen. And that is not a bad thing.
No. And also, just when somebody messes up, like that, like people do, don't, make it into the biggest thing in the world. Just gloss past it, obviously, depending on what's happened. But like, everybody is there to do their best, and you want to create a community and a culture that allows for that.
Absolutely that. Just like any business financial should allow for margin, or have like a kind of remedial in place, we call it. You should allow the same for your coaches. So allow mistakes, allow that to happen, because you're going to grow. You're going to grow from it.
Cool. Well, that brings us to wrapping up.
Quick summary.
Yeah, quick summary. So to remove yourself from coaching your own gym, which we believe is vital if you want to scale your studio and not become burnt out, you got to, number one, source the best coaches. Okay, look into local Facebook groups, find the people with experience who will be a good fit.
Go to local gyms.
Go to local gyms.
Yep.
Step 2, create a transition plan. So we're not throwing them into your session straight away. We're over a 30-day period, for example. You're following a plan to actually integrate them into the community, which is obviously equally as important.
Yep.
Number 3, brand them. So make them part of your business, create content on their behalf, introduce them to your community, brand them up in all your t-shirts, your jumpers, all your merch, all that kind of thing. And then step 4 is to allow for failure. Create a culture where everybody is empowered to be the coach that they want to be, right? They're not robots. They have experience. They've got their own styles. Let them do that within their sessions.
Yeah. Treat them with respect, honesty, and always give them as much support as they need to go be successful at your studio, because it ultimately grows your brand and makes members happier.
And, if you want to retain members, if you want to create monthly recurring revenue, then you need to invest in what's important and the assets that are going to help you get there. And the most important asset with any small group personal training business are the coaches who are leading the sessions. So yeah, don't skimp. Make sure you are investing in the right way.
And that's how to remove yourself from coaching. That's the pod.
Cool. See you later, guys.